It all starts with Minju storming into a cafe. She went straight up to a guy who was with another girl and yelled, "So, you betrayed my friend and now you're dating someone else?" The guy tried to say something, but before he could, he was getting beaten up. Then he pulled out his phone and started streaming live. Within seconds, the entire city knew that the boy had cheated on his friend with 48 women. At that moment, she threw leaves with all the checks, and one of them landed right in front of a boy who was standing above. He brushed it aside without giving it any thought because he was reading an article that said the young Jean heir had found the woman of his dreams, but the truth was, he hadn't found anyone. It was his father who told him, "Either you find a wife or you'll never be president of the company." Then his assistant gave him a file of candidates to choose from. The first was our girl, the same one who was downstairs beating up the cheating guy. Jean peeked out to see her in action and said, "That's the one I want." As she stumbled, he picked her up, asking, "Are you Minju?" She confidently said, "And if I'm not, well, I look like it." "What's up, babe?" He asked her to follow him, and outside, he showed her that he had broken her windshield during the fight. The cost to repair it was 1 million yuan. Frightened, she tried to escape, but he cornered her and, with those charming eyes, proposed that she become his fiancée so she could forget the debt. Then he gave her his card and let her go. Frightened, she called her friend and said, "I'm up to my neck. I'm going to die working." Then he thought about his dad. "If he finds out I owe 1 million, he'll send me straight to the graveyard." The next day, he returned to his normal life and started a live broadcast teaching karate. Jean watched it from his office and began imitating his moves. When his assistant came in, he settled in and said, "Come on, let's see what this girl is doing." But they were both surprised by her strength, so much so that the assistant said, "Boss, we'd better not mess with her. Let's find another girl." But Jean wanted her to go and ordered the lawyer to contact her. She, for her part, woke up early because of nightmares about the debt. So she started working very hard, but despite her efforts, when she did the math, she realized it would take 3 years to pay off the debt. Just then, the lawyer called her and gave her an ultimatum. She had to pay the debt or else she'd be sued. Afraid of going to jail, she decided to call him, but the assistant told her his boss wasn't available. Annoying to look for him, she kicked the assistant out at the door and confronted him, calling him a con man. However, she slipped and they almost kissed. Jean took the opportunity to explain that he needed Fing to be his fiancée. He tells her that his stepmother leaked a supposed engagement, which will be announced during an important party. She understood the situation, saying, "You need me to act like your fiancé to ruin your stepmother's plan," and Jean smilingly agreed. They then made a deal. He would forgive the debt if she pretended to be his fiancée and sabotage the party. And sure enough, the next day she arrived at the event arm in arm with Jean as his future wife, and suddenly found herself surrounded by so many people filming her. Nervous, she almost fell, but Jean caught her in time. She grabbed the microphone and began to sing, shocking her evil stepmother. Jean said that love now had meaning in his life, and that was our girl, who discovered love thanks to her. At that moment, a girl named Lana appears, and to contradict him, she reminds those present of the alliance between their companies, implying that she will be the true fiancée. But it was clear that Jean didn't feel comfortable with her at all. Meanwhile, our protagonist was at the buffet until her stepmother arrived and said something scathing. "Don't think that just because you wear a pretty dress and a bun makes you Cinderella." But she didn't stay silent and replied, "Well, look, ma'am, not all stepmothers deserve to be called mom." And the woman remained silent, not knowing what to say. Then Jean pointed to his father and said, "He hates drinking. If you can get him to drink something, consider it as if he'd given you 1 million. And sure enough, our girl got him to drink, saying, "Don't worry, man, he'll love me soon, and he'll understand that his son made the right choice." The next day, his father was having breakfast with his youngest son, scolding him for his horrible designs. Then Jean arrived and took out his anger on him. "When I finally tell you who I want to get you engaged to, you go and choose that woman." But our boy didn't stay quiet, saying, "I'm not going to marry anyone but her." His stepmother knew this was her chance and told her son, Your father can't stand your brother anymore. It's time to keep everything for yourself." On the other hand, she was remembering the party and reliving all those looks and gestures Jean made toward her, and she asked herself, "Are I falling in love?" But she decided to put her feet on the ground. She shouldn't forget that their relationship was fake. She couldn't let herself be carried away only by his charms. Then her friend came running in, saying, "Look, everyone's talking about you. They say you're engaged just for show." So she decided to call Jean, but his phone was off. He was in a meeting with his father, stepmother, and half-brother. During the meeting, his stepmother reminds him of a mistake he made years ago, making everyone look bad, as it almost bankrupted the company. Then Lana shows up, suspiciously telling him he could talk to the partners to help him keep the company, but at that moment, our girl called him to tell him what had happened, and he took the opportunity to leave and get rid of that annoying Lana. Meanwhile, she prepares to fight with a treacherous ex-boyfriend from the beginning of the summary. This time he came with his friends telling her that he was going to beat her up again, but he didn't count on her knowing how to defend herself. But since there were so many of them, she couldn't do it anymore, and just when they were going to hit her, Jean got in the way, taking the blow for her, and ordered his bodyguards to attack him and make sure they don't bother her again. Then he introduced himself to his friend as her fiancé. She almost had a heart attack because of how nervous she was, but at the same time, she loved the gesture. However, a second later, she was about to smash his laptop over his head when she found out that he was the one who posted the article just to pressure his family. Annoyed, she yelled at him, "So, to confuse your family, you created this circus and ruined my reputation. Now no one will want to marry me." But Jean dropped a bombshell without warning. "Do I want to marry you?" The news left her frozen, and in search of a deeper truth, she dared to ask if he was doing it for love, but the answer hit her like a bucket of cold water. It wasn't about love. He just wanted to defy his father. Obviously, she was about to hit him, so he quickly told her that before his mother died, she had left a percentage of her shares to whoever his wife would become, and while he didn't intend for her to keep them, he would give her $1 million as a wedding gift. With all the dignity in the world, she replied, "Money isn't everything. You're misunderstanding me." But he replied, "If it were $3 million, that would save your father from ruin, as he's about to lose his karate club." So she ended up accepting. Then he took her to face her family. They had both already agreed on how she would act, so she walked in, confidently saying, "Good night, handsome uncle, and good night, elegant aunt." Her brother mocked her, saying, "What a good choice you made." The stepmother didn't stay silent, saying, "I'm really disappointed. This girl isn't worth it at all." But he didn't stay silent and replied, "Seriously, and you too, you were just supposed to be my dad's friend, and look at you, you tricked him and married him when your son was 14. Things were getting ugly, and our girl came out saying, "Oh, so he's not really your brother. No wonder he doesn't seem to be working." But the furious father yelled at him, "Starting tomorrow, my new wife and your brother will be running the company. You're done for." Jean took him to his room and told him they'd be sleeping at his father's house that night, so as not to arouse suspicion, but starting tomorrow, they'd be living in their own house. While he was changing, he noticed Jean was bruised from the blow and tried not to think unwelcome thoughts when he saw our boy's body. Then he sent her to sleep on the couch in case anyone came. She'd get into bed as if they were together, and that's exactly what happened. As soon as they knocked on the door, she ran and jumped into bed. The maid left quickly and, acting like she was, began to tease her, but when she saw her so upset, she left her alone. She recovered and began to mock him, but decided it was better to keep quiet and went to sleep. The next day, she spoke to her secretary and told him that her father was going to retract everything because no one else could manage the company. While they were talking, they saw our girl training in the garden, and the secretary told him, "Now I understand why you chose her. She's different from the rest." Meanwhile, the father was overwhelmed, not knowing how to handle the situation since the clients were complicating things. At that moment, his wife appeared and told him that the old rumors had circulated again, those that said that she had tricked him into marrying him and that this was going to affect his reputation. Then she put it in his head that Jean was surely the culprit because he hated seeing her as his mother's substitute. Just at that moment, his assistant arrived and told him, "Sir, the shareholders, upon finding out that your wife is going to run the company, have become upset and want to withdraw their money." So the man clearly backed down and ordered his son to be convinced to return to the company. Meanwhile, he was quietly working while she kept talking next to him until someone knocked on the door, and she quickly sat on his legs. Obviously, that was a surprise to her stepmother. He played the peacemaker and said, "Don't get mad at me, honey. I wasn't the one who put the idea of marriage to your father or putting me in charge of the company. I'm going to give you back the presidency. I will also give you the family certificate that you asked for," and he left as if nothing had happened. All of this left our girl impressed, seeing how he got everything back without moving from her place. Then she asked him why he wanted the family certificate, and he replied, "To marry you, my beautiful moon." At that moment, her heart beat 950 times per second. She was melting, but she tried to hide it and thought, "Don't be fooled by her beauty. This is all a business. He only wants his mother's shares." Meanwhile, the stepmother was meeting with Lana, to whom she said, "I brought you specifically to make Jean fall in love with you, and it seems that you failed before you started, because she decided to marry that vagabond." At that moment, she received the call from her father. He had found out what was happening with Jean. Scared, he began to scream, "My dad is going to kill me. I have to make my will." Just at that moment, our hero appeared, saying that he would accompany her. She replied, "What an honorable gesture, but you are still in the prime of your youth. My father will tear you to pieces." Scared, he did not back down and went with her, and the father, seeing him, uttered a couple of phrases. "As always, you only bring problems to the family." But Jean did not remain silent and gave him the money he needed for the karate club, saying, "Consider it as part of the proposal for your daughter's hand." But the father replied, "No, son, we may be poor and in debt, but my daughter is not a commodity. Besides, whoever my future son-in-law is will have to take care of the club." She tried to help him, but her father told her to keep quiet. He told Jean that money was the last thing on his mind, and that there will be no wedding until he passes the 3 family tests. Min complained because he knew that meant what he would face and could be broken to the bone, but our boy accepted the challenge firmly. His first challenge would be to cut 300 onions, but calmly he passed the test with honors. Then came the second challenge: fill the pond with water from the lake, going back and forth without stopping. Seeing him exhausted and almost fainted, asked her father to stop the test, but her father refused, so she begged Jean to stop, but he insisted on continuing until he collapsed, and while her father-in-law carried him, he shouted that he wanted to continue the test so he could marry her. The third test was a board game in which they talked about many things. The man asked him why he let girls from good family pass to stay with his daughter. Jean replied, "To be honest, rich girls are plastic in our social class. Every marriage has a hidden interest, but his daughter is good, brave. I love her seriously. I want to marry her." And to his surprise, her father answered, "Perfect. And when is the wedding?" Jean replied, "We get married tomorrow." By the way, our boy won the game. He also gained the trust of his father-in-law, but they both ended up drunk. Then his mother sent him soup to clear his head, so he went to give it to him, and since he was hot, he took off his shirt and tripped, falling into her arms. But since they were spying on them, his father exploded my daughter and her fiancé, so this is a matter of honor. And since they both raised their voices, they were discovered by our boys having an awkward moment. The next day, his father gave him the family certificate for them to get married, but with one last condition: you will be the one who runs the club after me, and then it will be my grandson's turn. Her mother also did not accept the engagement money and only gave her daughter, making him feel part of the family. Then back home to his surprise, she gave him back the money, saying, "My prince, this was all an act, and that money doesn't belong to me." He replied, "I already have my family certificate, now we have yours, so let's get married. That money is yours, because there will be a wedding. Besides, it's the least your family deserves." And she joked, saying, "How nice, so now I'm a millionaire." So they went straight to the civil registry, they got married, and took a photo, which our boyfriend uploaded to his social networks with the title, "We got married." Then they went to visit his family, but before entering, she warned him that he shouldn't take advantage of the fact that they were now married, and our boyfriend, acting funny, asked her to call him my husband or my love from now on, leaving her nervous. What he didn't know was that inside the house, Lana and her father were gathered with her family. Lana's father remembered his other daughter, who died of a heart attack. Then he said, "Because of the love I have for my deceased daughter, I would like to ask you that your son marry Lana, and forgive me if it seems like we took the initiative." Our boyfriend's father replied, "Having a daughter-in-law like your daughter would be an honor. I won't find anyone better for My son, but right in that moment they entered and dropped the bomb showing their marriage certificate. Lana's father ran out of the place, and Jin's father stayed praying to calm his anger. Lana stayed there and approached him and kissed him as if nothing had happened, but he stopped her and said, "I'm a married man," and left her with our girl to go greet her father. Lana, upset, took advantage and said, and I know that she married you only because of her mother's actions. Don't get used to it. Soon he will be mine. But our girl confronted her, saying, "Look in the mirror, and you will understand why he is my husband," and left her swallowing her own poison. At that moment, the stepmother was making a scene, evil plan with his son they wanted to send to beat our girl, so that everyone would say that Jin was not capable of protecting his wife, and thus ruin her reputation. At that moment, he had already taken her home. He introduced her to his beautiful dog and told her that they would live together temporarily until they got the shares. To her surprise, he prepared a spectacular room for her and moved all her things, so she was happy. Then his secretary arrived to look for him because his brother was causing problems at the company. He asked her to stay home since he could be in danger and that he would return soon, but she thought, "No way, I'm going to be alone, and who does he think he is to lock myself in the house?" Later, a guy told her, "I'm your driver, ma'am." This was a surprise from her husband, but as soon as she got on, she realized that there were many men and understood that she had fallen into a trap. Of course, they were the thugs sent by the stepmother, but thanks to her martial arts skills, she teaches them a lesson and even exposes them in a live broadcast so that they feel ashamed. He quickly comes to look for her, hugging her worriedly, and in a burst of emotion gives her a kiss, which is seen by everyone online back home. He tells her that thanks to his marriage, he will finally receive his late mother's shares. Also mentions that once that is achieved, they can get a divorce. She was confused because she thought they were both falling in love, but she doesn't say anything and accepts his words. Then the secretary informed him that the shares could not be released. There was still a requirement of the will left by his late mother, which was that his future wife had to inherit the love necklace. That news shocked him, and he confesses his suspicion of who could have it. Just at that moment, Anna appears and announces that she will move in with them for a few days. Our boy reluctantly accepts since her sister lost her life saving him and feels he must pay that debt. However, there is another reason. He knows that he may already have the necklace and must get it back. Then he discovers that our girl left the house, and worried, he goes out to look for her. When he finds her, she explains that she is not angry. She only tried to trick Lana into thinking that they are fighting, so she will have the opportunity to get the necklace back. However, he does not agree and takes her back home. There he is sincere with her and reveals the story behind the necklace. It turns out that he had a relationship with Lana's sister, and her mother, as a symbol of her blessing, gave them the necklace that she herself made. But when she discovered that her father had a lover, he left upset and tripped, falling into the lake. Since he didn't know how to swim, Lana's sister jumped in to save him, but after rescuing him, he suffered a heart attack and died instantly. Confused, she asks him why he is telling her such intimate details of his life. He replies that he considers her his partner, which saddens our girl because there were started to think that he might be falling in love with her. Then he sent his stepmother documents that proved that her son was corrupt in the company. Basically, he was threatening her, saying, "If you mess with my wife, get ready." Later they meet Steven at a bar, who is a friend of our boy. She behaves in a loving way so that he does not suspect her false relationship, but from drinking so much, she ends up drunk. Here we find out that our boy's mother had helped Steven in his studies and, believing in his talent, supported him until he became a great jewelry designer, which the young man was always grateful to the lady and our boy. In fact, the stepmother was desperate to work with him. That's why our boy asked for her help to infiltrate him and help him complete his plan. Upon returning home, our boy reveals that his friend is aware that they are not a real couple since there are no secrets between them, and from the surprise, he even recovered from his drunkenness. Then she noticed that they were back at his family's house and asked him, "What are we doing here?" He told her, "Are you going to enter and continue with your drunken act in the living room? There's a plaster figure. I want you to go break it, as if you had tripped, make it look like an accident. That figure is very valuable to my father's wife, and breaking it will be the best revenge." And our girl gave it her all. She smashed the figure like a pro. The stepmother was paralyzed, but the one who ended up hurt was our girl, who fell and took her to her room. She put ointment on her, and she was very nervous about the situation, but She still asked her why she had planned all that. He explained that her mother had made the figure as a gift for her father on their wedding day, and that her stepmother had no right to consider it her property. And that's all I can tell you, because things got so intense that the devil himself would blush with what happened that night. But well, the next day, she went to see Ian's father and gave him a piece of broken plaster. She told him, "I wish you would pay attention to your son's feelings, and although you may be a businessman, let me tell you that you are not the best father in the world," which left him thinking about his mistakes. Then he went to the karate club. There her friend noticed her very happy, but our girl gave him silly excuses, hiding the real reason, or that she had spent the night with our boy, and to avoid him suspecting, she ended up confessing that her marriage was fake. And who do you think was hiding, listening to everything? Because the charming Lana, and as expected, she called the stepmother to tell her everything. Then she began to have work agreements with Steven. All that was missing was for our boy's father to accept, so she pressured his son to convince him, so when he dies, who would be left out of the company and even without a home. When she went to talk to her father, he accepted, but on the condition that Ian agreed. She, for her part, continued at the club with her friend, who kept convincing her that Ian really loved her. Her friend would tell her, "If she didn't love you, why would she be so attentive to you while traveling? She calls you every day at the same time." But she was doubtful of the situation, or at least she played dumb, so her friend told her to get to the point. "Today that she returns from the trip, ask her directly how she feels about you." And just when she got to her room, she greeted her with a big hug, saying that she had missed her, but Lana was hiding, spying on them, and took advantage of the fact that they left to search the entire room, finding her marriage contract. Meanwhile, our boy gave her a beautiful necklace that he had made for her. The next day, photos of her contract were published on the internet. She had to confront her father because everything had gotten out of control. She decided to go. She didn't want to leave him alone, but outside, she heard everything he said. He admitted that he was only using her to get his mother's shares, and that in reality, he had never loved her, leaving her heartbroken. The upset friend mobilized with a group of men, and they went to give him what he deserved, although they beat him up by mistake to Steven. But the important thing was the intention, and at least they threatened him so he wouldn't get close to our girl. On the other hand, the stepmother was trying to make her son gain power in the company so that he could inherit it. Days later, she looked for him to give him the necklace and ask for a divorce. She confesses that despite everything, she fell in love and doesn't want to continue seeing him to avoid suffering. But our boy reveals that he loves her too and apologizes for all the pain he caused her. He explains that he never wanted to hurt her, that he said all that to protect her from his stepmother, and they forgive each other with a passionate kiss, understanding that although their relationship began with a lie, it is now real, and they can prove it to each other later. The stepmother and brother make a serious mistake. Steven had not been scammed and disappeared with all the money, causing the company to lose millions. And when the father saw that all the jewelry was fake, he ended up hospitalized. Our boy, when he found out, went to visit him and told him, "You betrayed my mother after she took you out of poverty, and you let her die sick, but don't worry about your money. Now she is in good hands, mine." The truth is, I don't know if that was an act of kindness or pure revenge, but she said it with great style. Elsewhere, the desperate stepmother wanted to flee the country with her son, but our boy walked in saying, "Where do you think you're going?" and warned her that with all the evidence against her, he could easily send her to jail, but all she had to do was sign the divorce with her father, and so she succeeded. She finally freed her family from that evil woman, since her greed left her with nothing. Some time later, our protagonists have a happy and quiet life, although the roles have changed a bit. Now our boy runs his father-in-law's club. He is a professional trainer and does live broadcasts, and if you wonder what happened to the company, don't worry, she also changed careers. Now she is the director of the company. They respect her a lot, and both are very happy together, ending this beautiful love story. I hope you are also happy with today's summary. You know I read you in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any video. For now, I say goodbye. See you